Right now, somewhere in your yard, there is a bird you cannot see. It is not moving. It is not calling. If you walked past it with a flashlight and swept the beam across the shrubs, you might look directly at it and not register it as alive. It is tucked into a spot it chose before the light failed, its feathers pressed so perfectly against a branch that it has become part of the texture of the night. And what is happening inside its body at this very moment, what it is doing to survive until morning, is something most people have never been told. Most people assume birds sleep the way we do, that they find a branch, close their eyes, rest and wake up, that the night is simply a pause, a gap between the parts of their lives that matter. But the night is not a gap, it is a crucible. And the birds in your yard are not resting through it. They are fighting through it, quietly, invisibly, with physiological tools so precise and so strange that researchers are still mapping their full complexity. What those birds are doing in the dark, above your house, and behind your fence, and in the branches you brush past every morning, would stop you mid-breath if you could see it. Welcome to the hidden mind of birds. Stay until the end, because the final thing we cover is something that happens specifically on the nights when the temperature drops fast. A decision your birds make that looks like stillness, but is one of the most active choices a living creature can make. Let's start with the moment the light goes. A song sparrow, the one that has been singing from the top of your shrub every morning, drops into the densest section of cover. It has been quietly evaluating all afternoon, not just any spot, a specific spot. The branch geometry matters. The overhead canopy matters. The distance from the outer edge of the shrub matters, because that distance is the difference between being found and not being found. Research from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology has shown that songbirds show remarkable site fidelity in their roost choices, returning to the same specific location, sometimes the same branch, night after night across an entire season. This is not a habit in the thoughtless sense. It is earned knowledge. The bird has slept there before and survived. The spot has been validated. It tucks its bill into the feathers at its shoulder. This is not comfort. It is thermal engineering. The air trapped in the feathers around its neck is the warmest air near its body, and by pressing its bill into that reservoir, the bird reduces the surface area of exposed tissue by a measurable amount. Heat loss slows. The energy needed to maintain core temperature drops. Then it begins to do something its body has been preparing for since the last hour of daylight. It cools itself down on purpose. This is the part that changes the way you think about every bird you have ever watched. Most songbirds, chickadees, titmice, sparrows, wrens, nuthatches, practice what researchers call regulated hypothermia at night. They deliberately lower their internal body temperature, in some species by as much as 22 degrees Fahrenheit below their active daytime level. A black-capped chickadee that runs a body temperature of 107 degrees Fahrenheit, while foraging may drop to 85 or below by midnight. Its heart rate, which beats over 500 times per minute during flight, slows to a pace closer to that of a resting mammal. Its breathing becomes shallow and infrequent. From the outside, in the dark, it looks like a bird sleeping. From the inside, it is a system in controlled freefall, riding the edge between conservation and crisis. The reason is pure mathematics. A chickadee weighs between 9 and 14 grams, less than half an ounce. On a cold winter night, simply maintaining its core temperature at daytime levels would cost more energy than its body can store in a single day of foraging. The math does not work. The bird would burn through its reserves before dawn and die in the dark, not from cold, but from starvation, from having nothing left to burn. The regulated drop in temperature is the solution. Every degree the bird allows its core to fall represents a reduction in the energy needed to maintain it. Over the course of a long night, those degrees accumulate into the margin between surviving until sunrise and not surviving at all. What this means for your yard is this. The bird you see at your feeder at first light, energetic and sharp and singing from the highest branch, arrived at that moment by the narrowest margin you can imagine. It burned almost everything it had during the night. The first hours of daylight are not casual, they are urgent. It is refueling from a deficit that came within degrees of being fatal. Stay with me here, because what happens next is something even most bird enthusiasts don't know. The regulated hypothermia is not passive. It is not the bird simply getting cold because the night is cold. It is an active, neurologically managed process. The bird's brain is monitoring its core temperature continuously, even through sleep, and making adjustments. If the temperature drops too fast, if the ambient cold is driving the core below the safe threshold, the bird's nervous system fires. Shivering begins. Microcontractions in the flight muscles generate heat without movement, like an engine idling to keep itself from seizing. The bird shudders in the dark invisibly to protect itself from its own survival strategy. Research published in the journal Physiological and Biochemical Zoology has documented this thermostatically cycling in multiple species, a continuous night-long conversation between the bird's cooling body and its warming response, calibrated to stay in the narrow zone where energy is conserved without the temperature falling low enough to be dangerous. It is one of the most sophisticated survival systems in the animal kingdom, and it is happening right now in the bushes along the edge of your yard. There is something worth sitting with in that, but temperature is only one of the things the night asks of a bird. There is also the problem of the dark itself. Owls are the reason songbirds tuck into dense cover and go still. A great horned owl hunts by sound as much as sight, its asymmetrically placed ears capable of triangulating the position of a mouse under 6 inches of snow from 50 feet away. It does not need to see your sparrow, it needs to hear it. Movement means sound. Sound means death. This is why the stillness of a roosting bird is so complete. It is not the stillness of relaxation. It is the stillness of a creature that understands, at the deepest evolutionary level, that any noise it makes in the dark is a signal to something that kills. The feathers are fluffed not just for insulation but to dampen incidental sound, the rustle of a body shifting against a branch. The tuck posture reduces the bird's profile, its silhouette against whatever ambient light the night carries. Every adaptation is layered over every other adaptation. The thermal strategy, the predator avoidance strategy, and the roost site selection strategy are not separate systems. They are one system. The bird in your yard at night is not doing several things. It is doing one thing, with extraordinary precision, surviving until morning. Now here is something that will reframe every winter morning you have ever watched birds arrive at your feeder. The bird that comes first, and it is almost always the same individual, the dominant bird of the local hierarchy, did not simply wake up and fly to your yard. It came out of something close to a minor crisis. In the 90 minutes before dawn, as light begins to build at the horizon even before the sun appears, roosting birds begin warming themselves back up. The regulated hypothermia must be reversed. Core temperature must climb from that conserved overnight low back to operating range before the bird can fly effectively, before its muscles can respond with full speed, before its eyes can process the full range of light and motion it needs to navigate and forage. This warming process, called the morning arousal, costs energy at a rate that rivals flight. The bird is burning reserves to heat itself, and it must complete this process quickly, because every minute spent roosting past first light is a minute it is not foraging. Every minute it is not foraging is a minute the deficit from the night grows wider. The chickadee that hits your feeder at dawn, looking perfectly composed, alert, fluffy with life, it just ran a physiological marathon in the dark that you slept straight through. It conserved exactly enough to warm back up, fly to your yard and begin again. Not a gram more than it needed. The margin is that thin every single night. And then there are the nights when the temperature drops faster than predicted, a front that arrives earlier than expected, a clear night that radiates heat away from the earth faster than a cloudy one, the cold that finds your yard in the deep hours and presses harder than the birds planned for. On these nights something happens that is the most remarkable thing I want you to know. Some birds do not roost alone. Chickadees, who spend most of the year fiercely territorial, defending feeding areas and asserting hierarchy at every feeder encounter, will, on the coldest nights, pack together into a single cavity. One bird would fit comfortably, 2 is tight. Researchers have documented up to a dozen black-capped chickadees roosting together in a single tree cavity on extreme cold nights. Their bodies pressed against each other, sharing heat in a way their daytime behaviour would never suggest was possible. The hierarchy does not disappear, but it is suspended. The survival need overrides the social structure, and each bird in that cavity is warmer and safer and more likely to live until dawn because of the bodies pressing against it. A study from the University of Quebec found that the decision to roost communally in chickadees is temperature dependent below a certain threshold. The calculus shifts. The energy cost of sharing space with competitors becomes less than the energy cost of surviving alone. The birds make this calculation every night, silently, invisibly. In the dark, in the cold, in the hollow of whatever tree your yard has given them. So the next time the light goes and the yard goes quiet, and you turn away from the window, know what you are turning away from. That song sparrow is in the viburnum again, the same branch it has trusted for weeks, its bill tucked into the warmth at its shoulder, its temperature already beginning to fall. The chickadee is in the cavity in the oak, or pressed against a neighbour in the cold, its nervous system counting degrees through the night. The whole yard is full of quiet, invisible survival, bodies calibrated to the edge of what is possible, doing everything required to be there at first light. You thought the day was where their lives happened. The night is where they earn it. Tell me in the comments, have you ever gone outside at night with a flashlight and actually found a bird roosting in your yard? I'd love to hear where it was and what it looked like. I read every one. I'll see you in the next one.